Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and we are coming to you from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank in Alpharetta. Folks, today you're connected more than ever. Whether it's your friends, your family, or your life, Renaissance understands how you bank, offering the mobile banking services that you need. And Renaissance also knows that sometimes you need to speak to real people with real answers, and that's why Renaissance has more than 190 convenient locations throughout the South ready to serve you. For more information, go to renaissancebank.com. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. And now we've got an old friend of the program, Alan Rosenbaum. Alan is with Dream Vacations. He's a franchise owner and vacation specialist with Dream Vacations. Alan, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Again, so you were here, I don't know, 3 years ago maybe, right after we got going here in North Fulton. But you are with Dream Vacations. For folks that can't figure out what you do, tell them all about it, right?
Okay. Well, I am a vacation specialist. I've been doing this for a little over 16 years. Before that, I was in high tech, and then that whole industry sort of fell apart in 2003, and I reinvented myself because I didn't think high tech was coming back in the United States the way it was. So I bought a franchise, and at that time it was called Cruise One, and we just sold cruises. And over the years, we picked up all sorts of other vacation venues, and we rebranded a few years ago. Now we are Dream Vacations. And also when I started, I think we had a little over 200 franchises around the country. Now we have about 1,500. So the company has grown, and I've grown, and the product line has grown. It's all good.
You know, Alan, we were talking about this before we went on the air, that one of the things I think is really interesting, because I've heard you say things like this more than once, and it's a lesson to all us business owners to talk not about our features and benefits, but the value that we bring. And I heard you say that you don't sell just a trip, you sell experiences and memories. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it's not only that. Yeah, because you can buy a vacation from anybody. And it might be the wrong vacation. You need to be matched up. So the two things that maybe more than two things, but I offer my services. I offer my advice. That's really what I'm selling. I'm selling me. I'm providing the vacations, but what I'm selling is my expertise. And then what you should be buying, and what I hope help you buy, is the experience and the memories. If you're just buying a place to go, that's not going to last. It's not going to be something that stays with you.
Sure, and I don't think the internet is really good at helping create experiences and memories for you. I mean, right?
Yeah. In fact, this goes back a couple of years, but I was talking to someone who booked through the internet. And they said, well, they can read the reviews, and just by reading the reviews, they'll know which is a better cruise line, which is a worse cruise line. And so they were comparing Carnival with Celebrity. Very, very, very different cruise lines. But they said, well, people were writing good reviews about Carnival, and they were writing good reviews about Celebrity, so they must be the same. But they were different people.
Right.
They were different kind of people who like Carnival or Celebrity. And so that was a bad way to make a decision. And that's why people like me, informed travel agents will help you, make the right decisions about your upcoming vacations.
And people run to the internet because they think it costs less. So let's talk about that elephant in the room,
Yeah.
right? About a cost of using a travel agent versus going online and doing it yourself.
Yeah, most travel agents, and me included, do not charge a fee. Not only that, but we will often get deals from the cruise lines or from the resorts that will be lower than you can get. So very often you will pay less going to a travel agent than going online or doing it yourself. There are exceptions. If I am putting together a very complex itinerary for somebody, I will add a service fee, and so that's going to bump it up a little. But you're going to be saving hours and hours doing, if it's complex, you're saving hours from doing it yourself.
Sure, and your time is worth something there, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So I think there's also, speaking of internet, there's also a perception about last minute bookings and being able to save money doing it at the last minute.
Yeah, that used to be true a very long time ago. In fact, there was a time when you could pack your bags, go down to the pier, and if there was an empty stateroom, practically get on for free. That went away a long time ago. What happened first was the cruise lines got smart about controlling inventory. So those last-minute things, they just don't do it anymore. In fact, usually if there's going to be a sale on a cruise, it's going to be 2 or 3 months out, not 2 or 3 hours. So that's changed. But then after 9/11, security got a lot more tighter. And so even if you were willing to pay a lot, you wouldn't be able to get on the cruise at the last minute because the TSA wants passenger manifests in advance. And if you just show up, they don't have you on the manifest and you're not getting on the ship. So a lot has changed in terms of the pricing, in terms of security, and so on. So these last minute things don't really exist anymore.
We're speaking with Alan Rosenbaum, and he's an owner of Dream Vacations here in the North Fulton area. Alan, let's get that out there. You deal with folks all over the place, not just here in North Fulton, right?
That's true. The nature of the franchise that I own is that we don't have territories. I have, of course, most of my clients are here because this is where I live, but I have clients as far east as Spain, as far west as California.
Oh, wow.
I have clients in Canada. So far, I don't have a client in Mexico, though.
And how do you get clients so far flung?
Well, some of them were local and then moved, and some of them are referrals.
Okay. And you obviously get referrals because you've done a good job for someone else, right?
I guess that's it. I hope that's true.
Right. So I know you got into this business because you love cruises. So, and you talked about the difference in cruise lines. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that,
sure.
about the continuum of cruise lines, and each one of them offers a different experience for folks.
Yeah, there are basically three main categories. You have contemporary lines, which would include Carnival and Norwegian and Royal Caribbean. You have premium lines, which are a little more upscale, and that would include Princess and Celebrity. And you have your luxury lines, Regent and a few others. And then you have special. So those are your three main categories. Then you have what you might call specialty cruises. You have something like Disney, which really doesn't quite fit in to any of the other categories. It is a high-end cruise line, but not quite fitting into a standard category. And you have river cruises, which have become really, really popular in the last few years. In fact, I may have mentioned this before, but last year I booked more river cruises than I did in the previous 15 years in business.
Oh, wow.
That has become so popular.
Well,
now.
let's talk about that. Why is that? Why has it become so popular?
Well, for one thing, Viking has been advertising like crazy, and that's been generating interest. And then people have been going on river cruises, and they've been enjoying them. The river cruises the cruise ships themselves are, of course, much smaller than an ocean cruise. They concentrate on the destinations, not on the onboard activities. So they will have entertainment, but they don't have a big showroom, and they probably don't have a casino. It's a different kind of experience, and it's much more informal with fewer passengers. It's also not designed for multi-generational families like maybe Royal Caribbean, for example. The Royal Caribbean has ice skating, and they have water parks, and they've got comedy clubs and so on. The river cruises are really designed for more mature people. The demographic is probably 50s and 60s, and not really younger and not really older. And then the other thing is that kind of limits the age group for river cruises is it's not really welcoming for people with mobility issues, whereas the large ships are.
Right.
Large ships will accommodate people in wheelchairs. It's pretty difficult on a river cruise. So there's a small group, small demographic, 50s and 60s. But those people now have the time, they have the money, and they're doing the river cruises.
And how do those cruises compare with both length of cruise and the cost?
The length is about the same as an ocean cruise. You can take a river cruise as short as 7 days, or you can take it, for a couple of weeks, which is about the same as what most ocean cruises are. But the cost is going to be a lot more. There are fewer people. There's more hands-on service, that including a lot more on land in terms of excursions and so on. So the cost is going to be quite a bit more, but the experience is different because of the nature of the ship and the nature of the itinerary.
Sure. That makes sense. So back to the ocean-based cruises and the cruise lines, and you were talking about the differences between them. So
yes.
Walk us through how you talk to a client in terms of giving them a recommendation on which cruise line they ought to be on.
Well, it depends on who they're going with. If it's a mature couple, without kids, I will suggest a premium line, and that's my personal favorite. So I like Princess and I like Celebrity. They don't have the water parks, and they don't have the ice skating rinks, and they don't have the bumper cars. And I don't care. I'm not going to use any of those.
Right.
So it's not that it's not good for kids, but they're not specifically working to attract kids. On the other hand, if you have a family with a lot of kids who want all those things, I would suggest something like Royal Caribbean or Carnival or Norwegian, where they have the water parks and they have all of these other kinds of things directly focusing for multi-generation families and kids specifically. So, adults can be doing one thing, and the kids can be in the kids club, or, they have a lot of the cruise lines have activities specifically for kids with counselors, and so the kids are being watched. And the other cruise lines will have that, but not to a huge extent. And then you move up to something that's sort of between premium and luxury, not quite luxury, but better than premium. Sometimes they're called deluxe. So Oceania would be something like that. They really don't encourage kids at all. They don't have any specific activities for kids. You can take a kid. The kid could, but the kids will have something to do, but there are no organized activities. So they don't encourage that. And so I will ask a client, to get back to your original question, I will ask a client who is going, what kind of activities do they like? Is it, an active group, or you just want to sit near the pool? And then we can kind of focus, work down to the specific cruise line. Oh, and of course, by the way, and this is something I always ask last, and that has to do with budget, because people who give me a budget will usually give me a low number because they think they've got a bargain. It's not a real number.
Right.
So we can discuss budget last. And if I quote something that they can afford, fine, we're done. If it really is too high, they'll tell me, and then we'll work a little bit more. But I always find that starting with budget is the wrong question.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're speaking with Alan Rosenbaum. And Alan is the owner of Dream Vacations. He's a vacation specialist with his own franchise. Alan, what are the trends that you see in cruise lines? I mean, I've seen news lately on some new ships that have gone out, that have been released. Do you recommend trying those out, or what are some of the different things that you're seeing in cruises you think people ought to pay attention to, take advantage of?
Well, again, it depends on the client. I have some clients who will always want the newest and the biggest ship, and it doesn't matter what the ship is or what the cruise line is. If it's the newest and biggest, they want to try it. On the other hand, I have clients who will never do anything except one specific cruise line because they like it. There are these loyalty programs as well, so they want to get points on their loyalty.
Right.
But every cruise line is trying to outdo it, especially if it's a cruise line aiming for families. They're all trying to outdo themselves. So one of the first things, when I was first starting, one of the Royal Caribbean ships had pool tables on board. And I was thinking, wow, pool table on a ship, how can you get any better than that? You know? But now they've, as I said, they have full water parks, and they've got, some of the ships have bumper cars and ice skating rinks, and then even for adults, they have robotic bartenders.
Oh, wow.
It's, yeah. And by the way, when you have no bartender and it's all robotic, the drinks cost more. Because people want to watch the robotic bartender.
Isn't that interesting?
So, yeah, and so, and then there's also simulated skydiving on one of the ships. It's pretty much whatever they can think of that they can do on land, they're trying to put on ships.
Right.
And there are people who just want to experience that. Because it's new and they haven't experienced it on a ship. And a lot of people haven't experienced it on land either, but this is now a combination of amusement park and cruise ship. So people are looking for that. And then, as I say, you've got the people that just like the old standard ship where they're going to go to a port and enjoy the port.
Sure. So destinations, what are you, when folks come to you and say, hey, what are you looking at that you like these days? I mean, I know it depends on people's taste, right?
Right. The most popular, especially from this area, going to be Caribbean because it's really easy to go to. It's not easy to go to Alaska, but people are doing Alaska. I've done over 40 cruises. I stopped counting at about 40. Yeah. But Alaska was my best cruise. Absolutely, no question.
Really?
It was absolutely my best cruise. And it was a while ago, and the ship that I was on isn't even on the water anymore. They got rid of that ship.
Oh, wow.
It was, I'm thinking it was maybe 16 years ago. So people doing Alaska, people doing Caribbean. I used to get Canada and New England quite a bit, and I'm not seeing that too much anymore. I'm seeing, as I said, more river cruises, Mediterranean a bit. So it hasn't changed a lot, but there are a few hot spots like Alaska and river cruising. Those have picked up a lot. Otherwise, and I used to do a few South America. I'm not seeing that too much anymore.
We're speaking with Alan Rosenbaum with Dream Vacations. Alan, talk a little bit about just the new trends you see in travel generally, and the different options that people have that they may not know about.
Well, I'm doing more resorts and tours now than I used to do. And so people want all inclusive. And usually, at least in my clientele, I'm doing couples without kids, and they want to go to an all-inclusive adult only. And there are a lot of them, and some of them are, most of them are pretty luxurious. And so I'm getting more of those now. And in fact, I'm working with one company who is sending their best employees to an all-inclusive adult only. This is the third year they're doing that. And so they'll be down there for about 4 days. As a reward for their employees. And that kind of thing is picking up. And then individuals are doing that as well. And we're seeing tours. And so, last year I had one client who did a full tour of Italy. A package tour, I should say. They didn't see all of Italy, but it was a package. Included the flight, included the transportation between the cities, and included the tours, everything. I had about a month before, I had another client who was doing Italy on points. They had Marriott points. I think they did their flights on points. They did their hotels on points. All they wanted were the tours. So I put together a custom package for them where we set up the transportation and we set up the tours, and it was 100% custom, but did not include hotels and airfare. So we can do all of it. We can do part of it. We can do custom. And by the way, and that's another great reason to use a travel agent. If somebody had to put together these tours by themselves, it would take longer to do that than the tour itself.
Right. Yep. And sometimes people don't value their time. And that's good to know that, so you can come in on any part of a trip.
Right.
That might be previously planned, or you're using points or whatever, so you can help with parts of a trip as well. So maybe sometimes people feel like, oh, I got my airline for points and I really can't use Alan anymore, but that's not true.
No, that's not true. And one of the things that we started, and I'm not quite trained yet, but it will be very, very soon. We can now accept American Express points to book any vacation. So even if you have points, you don't have to go to American Express anymore to get the vacation. You can come to me to get the vacation. But I've had some scheduling issues in my personal life, so I haven't had a chance to finish the training on that yet. But that should be very soon. By the way, the two of us know someone who wanted to do a tour of Ireland, and I made a proposal. And they said, no, they really want to do it more independent, not with a group. There were 3 couples.
Yeah.
And so I set them up with a car and driver. Do whatever you want.
Oh, wow.
And then they said, no, they really want to be more independent than that. So they just went without any planning. Now, I suppose that they had a good time, but I don't think if you go to a foreign country and you've only got a week, let's say, I don't think going without a plan is not the way to do it. You're just going to miss too much.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you really, I guess people take off to someplace like Ireland or the UK generally. And they think, oh, since they speak English, they can get around, right? And so they don't have to worry about anything, right?
Yeah. Well, that's not true.
Yeah.
It's like, putting yourself in the middle of a city in the United States that you've never been to. Okay, what do I do now?
Well, and even we find this as we travel around the United States, right? There are all these places that you didn't know about that having a travel agent guide you toward is a good investment. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. It's very different now than it was a long, long time ago. In fact, you kind of reminded me of a story when my grandfather retired, and this was in the 1950s. He and my grandmother packed up their station wagon and drove west, and they decided, this is from New York, they decided they are just going to go across the country and back. And if they liked the place, they'd stay there for a while and then, move on and go to the next place that they liked. Mm-hmm. And this was before the interstates were built. So it was just really the local roads. Mm. It took them 6 months to go back and forth, and they had a great time. But you could do it in those days. There were motels along these roads, and you could stop, and there were no cell phones, so you couldn't call ahead.
Right.
But you could do it in the 1950s. Now things are too complex, and it's good to get everything planned out.
So, Alan, what are those back to destinations and the uniqueness of destinations? What are those destinations that you recommend folks go to because things are changing so fast? The charm that they have. Oh,
that's a hard one.
I would think Alaska's one of those, given the global warming and the climate change.
It would be. That's actually interesting. Though we did Alaska, as I say, about 16 years ago, I think it was. And we visited Mendenhall Glacier, and that's a learning experience. Glaciers flow; they flow down, mm-hmm. And Mendenhall flows at the rate of about 1 foot per year. But it's melting and receding at the rate of 2 feet per year.
Wow.
So it's actually receding 1 foot per year. And that's what's happening in Alaska. We used to joke about visit Alaska before it melts.
Right.
But it's not such a joke. There are places that are disappearing because of global changes.
Yeah, for sure. And then population changes, development changes, changes the uniqueness of some destinations.
Yeah, and the cruise ships themselves kind of spoil some destinations because there are so many people coming in.
Right.
My first cruise was, I'm trying to think, maybe 30 years ago, and it was a 3-day cruise to the Bahamas on Carnival out of Miami. So we go down to the Bahamas, we dock in the Bahamas. Maybe there was one other ship there, and these were small ships compared to what what's used now. And it was a very pleasant day in the Bahamas, in Nassau. If you go to Nassau now, there'll be at least 6 huge ships. The streets will be so crowded that you can barely cross the street. That was my experience the last time we went to Nassau. And so it's a very different experience. You're not seeing Nassau anymore. You're seeing tourists. So now there are still some places that haven't gotten that crowded yet, but that's kind of the trend. If it's a nice place, people are going to go, and things will get expensive. Actually, in terms of things getting expensive, several years ago we took a cruise from New York to Canada, New England. We stopped in Halifax. Lobsters in Halifax are great. I love lobster. But what we found out was on the day that there was a ship in port, the price of lobster in a restaurant doubles.
So, it's funny how that works.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, traveling is fun, but it changes because people kind of get excited about a particular place. The more people go, the more it changes. It's not what it used to be. Yeah,
for sure. Alan, talk a little bit about how you can customize travel for folks. It's not just about a prepackaged tour.
Right. Well, like the Italy thing that I was talking about, where we kind of customized the trip in terms of the sightseeing and the transportation. We have a lot of vendors. We have probably hundreds of preferred vendors, and these are vetted by the corporation. These are reliable. These are vendors that I can rely on and go to. I can go to one, and they all specialize in different things. Some of them specialize in Europe, some of them specialize in Asia, and so on. So I can go to one of these. Some of them just sell packages, and some of them customize. I go to one that customizes. This is what my client wants. Quote it for me. And they will. And then I present it to the client. No, maybe I don't want to spend that much time in this city. Okay, we go back to the original vendor. They make that change. So it's a process. And we can go back and forth as many times as we need to. We finally come up with an itinerary that works, and the vendor that I work with puts together the whole package. And these are vendors, as I say, they've been kind of pre-approved. I can trust them, and my client goes on a great vacation.
That's great stuff. Alan Rosenbaum, he's with Dream Vacations. So, Alan, for those that have heard something they'd like to know more about, would like to be in touch with you generally, tell them how they can do that.
Well, my phone number is 770-664-9010, and my website is vacationsbyalan.com.
And that's A-L-A-N.
Oh,
folks.
yes.
Yeah.
There's too many ways to spell Alan.
Right.
It's
right.
A-L-A-N. Vacationsbyalan, A-L-A-N.com.
Cool. Alan Rosenbaum with Dream Vacations. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Folks, if you need some help curing the headaches of administrative tasks or bookkeeping, marketing, maybe a presentation, well, go engage a smart and reliable Office Angel. They're not a temp agency or a placement firm. Office Angels matches your business support needs with angels who have the talent and experience necessary to help you maintain and grow your business on an ongoing or as-needed basis. Your terms, your timeline. They lend a hand when needed and fly off when the job is done. Find out more at officeangels.us or call Chief Executive Angel S.E. Escobedo at 770-442-9246. And, folks, a reminder, you can listen to this show every Tuesday morning live at 11:30. And sometimes we have special shows like this one, this edition of North Fulton Business Radio. But if you miss any of our shows, you can find us on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Spotify, just about any podcast app you want to name. You can search for us at North Fulton Business Radio and subscribe to us and give us a good review if you would, and help us continue to do the work supporting business leaders in the North Fulton area. You can also go to northfultonbusinessradio.com at any time, 24/7, listen to any of our shows in our archive there. We've had about 170 shows, over 400 guests over 3.5 years. So it's a lot there to check out. And also on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, you can find us by searching North Fulton BRX. So for my guest, Alan Rosenbaum, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.
Renaissance Rewards Extra is the checking account that checks all the boxes. Roadside assistance? Check. Cell phone insurance? Check. More than 400,000 local shopping discounts? Check. Up to $25 per month in ATM refunds and a great rate? Check. All in an easy-to-use mobile app. To open an account or find out more about Renaissance Rewards Extra Checking, go to renaissancebank.com or visit us at any of our more than 190 locations throughout the South. Renaissance Bank.